Hey guys, Mobile Geezer, and I'm back with a follow-up to the first story we did on Friday Night Tech Talk, which involved Apple's latest court case where the judge was really coming down on them. So since I did that story, I guess it must have been one of the first ones out there because I'm seeing a number of videos that keep popping up about this story and about this court case, and I guess it's going to continue to get bigger and bigger. So this follow-up story involves Spotify, and even though Epic Games brought the original suit against Apple, Spotify has been kind of involved from the very beginning. So Spotify has come up with a response in just a couple of days to the judge ordering Apple to open things up. So let's go take a look at the story on Phone Arena.
Let's do this.
Spotify scores a major win against Apple, prompting this latest app update. And this was published yesterday, written by Joanna Romero. Let's drop it into Reader View and get rid of these ads. Spotify has updated its iPhone app in the United States, allowing users to sign up for its paid plans using links that take them outside the app. This change comes right after a U.S. court ruled against Apple's App Store payment rules. For Spotify users, it means they can now pay Spotify directly, avoiding Apple's system entirely. With the updated app, Spotify can show its different subscription plans and special offers right inside the app. When a U.S. user clicks on one of these, they'll be taken to Spotify's website to enter their payment details. This process skips Apple's in-app purchase system, which usually takes a cut of the money, often up to 30%. The court order behind this change also stops Apple from charging a separate fee previously proposed at 27% on these external payments. Additionally, Apple isn't allowed to show warning messages trying to discourage users from clicking these links to pay outside the app. And that's one of the things they were trying to do that got the judge so very ticked off. Apple had to approve Spotify's app update containing these changes because of the court's decision. The iOS Spotify app now lets you navigate outside the Apple App Store in order to make purchases. The court case behind it. This wasn't a Spotify-specific lawsuit, but rather a result of the long-running legal battle between Epic Games, maker of Fortnite, and Apple. On April 30th, 2025, a judge found Apple was violating an earlier order meant to stop the company from preventing developers from guiding users to other payment options. The court specifically ordered Apple to allow these external links without charging a commission on them, which they tried to do, and without using scare tactics on users who clicked them, and they did that also. The ruling also mentioned that an Apple executive had given false information during the proceedings. Apple has stated its plans to appeal this latest court decision, and the court referred that Apple executive to the California legal system for possible prosecution. So this is pretty serious stuff. So now I'm going to take you to a CNBC video that I found discussing this case. It's 4 minutes long, but I think it's worth watching and listening to. And this should give you guys a better idea of how big this case is and is probably going to keep getting bigger. So let's go take a look.
There is a lot to talk about on one of the world's biggest companies and most important stocks. So let's jump right in. We got Steve Kovac out west, Wall Street Journal's Tim Higgins. He's got a new book, by the way, coming out on this exact topic. It is called I War, and MAI Capital Management Chief Market Strategist Chris Grisanti is here on set. Steve, let's start with you. You're out west in Cupertino. Got the numbers tonight. I'm sure tariffs are going to be an issue. We'll see if they go into it at all. But like in layman's terms, what is this legal case and does it matter that much?
Yeah, Brian, it does matter. It matters enormously because the judge ruled yesterday that Apple was in contempt of her order to allow other apps, including Epic's Fortnite, which is the one who originally brought this lawsuit, to guide their users outside of the App Store to make payments and therefore skipping that so-called Apple tax that Apple takes. A lot of allegations throughout this filing that we got yesterday, but among some claiming an Apple exec lied on the stand, saying that he did not know about some internal discussions going on with an Apple that actually did turn out to be happening. She also says Apple withheld evidence that the company was talking about ways to skirt around her injunction when they did not disclose that information to the judge, and just a number of other things. But at the end of the day here, this case has now been referred to for potential criminal contempt charges, not just against the executive who the judge says perjured on the stand during this, but also against Apple itself. Now, Apple tells us they are going to comply with the order. That means pretty soon, and we might start seeing some apps issue updates that allow them to skirt around those App Store payments.
And that's what this Spotify story is about. They're updated. They have updated their app, which will skirt around Apple's payment system,
therefore putting that lucrative App Store business at risk. By the way, Brian, in the filings, how much money is at risk? Billions. That is what Apple's own notes from these internal meetings that were disclosed yesterday in this court order show that Apple did the math here and said, if we follow this judge's order, we could potentially lose out on billions of dollars. And they found a different way to kind of skirt around it. And the judge is not happy with them and saying, no, you have to listen to us. You appealed this all the way to Supreme Court. Supreme Court kicked it back down to me. You have to listen to me. In her words, this is not a negotiation, Brian.
Steve, just stay there for a moment. Chris, I'm curious if you have any thoughts on Apple here. You know, the stock on a recent winning streak, but faces this challenge potentially to the App Store, has all these questions about tariff supply chain. Maybe it has to raise prices. What do you think about it?
You know, I think Steve is right. There is a large revenue component, but I think it's even worse than that. And Brian, you probably remember from law school. I mean, judges are judicious. That's but she was not judicious, even though over the 5 years of this case, she's been very even-handed and handed Apple a bunch of wins on this case. And
that's very true. She has given Apple some wins on this case, but she was very upset that they tried to get around this ruling.
Now she's really angry, and it's not only a revenue issue, it's a public relations issue. She's referring for criminal prosecution, and she specifies the one guy who she said lied outright. And so it's a big black eye for Apple. The revenue will be important, but it's another brick in the wall.
The market doesn't care, Chris. The market stock's up right now. And I want to be clear, and I haven't read the case, I probably should, but the criminal complaint might be about the perjury of the individual, not about Apple's behavior. I'll make that extremely clear because I don't feel like going to court.
It might be, but she says in the ruling that Tim Cook made the wrong choice by trying to go down this road of kind of denying and not obeying her injunction.
And we read you all that on Friday Night Tech Talk this Friday.
So this is a pretty big deal. I think it's more important, though, Brian, it's not so much a stock on the day issue. It's more that it's one more piece of evidence, whether it's Google, whether it's Apple, whether it's Amazon, that the complaints are piling up about anti-competitive behavior. And I'm afraid this will lower multiples generally in that group.
So when I saw this discussion on CNBC, I thought I need to show you guys this because it does a pretty good job of showing just how big and important this case is and can be. So now we'll finish up our Spotify article. More challenges for Apple. This ruling is another example of the increasing pressure Apple faces over its App Store control. In Europe, new rules called the Digital Markets Act have already forced Apple to make changes, and we've been keeping up with that for months, really. Like allowing other app stores and payment methods on iPhone, although regulators are still watching closely to ensure Apple is following the rules properly. In its home country, Apple is also dealing with a major antitrust lawsuit filed by the U.S. Department of Justice in March 2024, which claims Apple uses its power unfairly to hurt competition. For iPhone users who stream music, this ability to subscribe directly on Spotify's site might make signing up simpler or offer access to deals not previously visible in the app. It's a move towards giving developers more freedom in how they handle payments and connect with their customers on Apple devices. As a consumer, I am of the opinion that the more choices we have, the better the ecosystem works. Apple may disagree with this, but I feel it's refreshing that we can now choose to go with lower price billing options. Subscribing directly from the App Store offers the convenience of the walled garden, but that's not always what the user wants. So I thought this was a good follow-up. Spotify is already jumping on their opportunity to get around the App Store, and kudos to them. So as always, comments are welcome. Thanks for watching. And remember, if you like my content, please share the videos with friends, family, or whomever you think might be interested. Subscribe if you haven't already done so, and be sure to click the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos that I upload. And please hit the thumbs up, as it does help with the algorithm.
Yeah.